So good morning, everyone. My name is John Hess. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at DFM Data Corporation. I'm joined today by Peter Benson from ECCMA. He's the Executive Director, and Andrew Cullen, our Chief Technology Officer at DFM Data Corporation, to show you the path to visibility and clean data. Welcome. Thank you for registering and attending, and I hope you gain some insight. With that, I'll turn it over to Peter.
Thank you, John, and good morning to everyone. Let me see if we can get our slides up. Can you take me to the next slide? There we go. So ECCMA is an association of, it's a not-for-profit association. We formed about 20 years ago, and our goal is to improve the quality of data, specifically how it relates to supply chain. So basically what ECCMA does is we focus on international standards for identifying and describing the key concepts of the supply chain: who, what, where, and when. It's pretty simple, but if you're not able to communicate with your trading partner unambiguously about who, what, where, and when, then your supply chain is not going to function in a seamless manner. Now, our goal, of course, is we want to get interoperability, we want integration. Integration comes after interoperability. That's the first challenge. And to have interoperability, you need portable data. My data, when I send it to you, you must be able to read it, make sense of it. When you send me data, I must be able to do the same. And our goal is flexible, resilient, minimal waste, zero fraud, and a sustainable supply chain. And we're actually getting closer and closer. We're making some big headway. Today, we're going to be talking more about the transport unit identifier, which is at the very pointy end of this supply chain system. If your logistics doesn't work, if you don't know what you're transporting, what you're moving, then of course, that's not going to work well. So that's ISO 8119. It's in the review process at the moment, but it fits into all the other standards that we have. Next slide. ECCMA, as I said, was founded about 20 years ago, 1999, and we provide our members with digital solutions, supply chain solutions. Everybody's going through digital transformation. It's very important. They're trying to tackle it in a different way, but the benefits of digital transformation are well proven. You'll hear it every day in the press, and every day I get another email from other companies saying, look at the difference it's made. We've moved, our digital transformation has been successful, and we have a digital supply chain, and we're able to do things we were never able to do before. But there's a lot of things underneath that you have to take care of. Data governance, of course, you have to have some data quality training, consulting, and that's pretty much what ECCMA provides. And we provide also research for our members in terms of data dictionaries, taxonomies. And we, most particularly these days, we help them with onboarding and verifying their suppliers and onboarding and verifying materials. So the whole idea behind that is that for suppliers and customers, you would not think you have duplicates in your system. I hate to tell you, you do. In fact, in a supplier master, we typically see about 30% duplication because the typical key is the name. People get the name wrong, they misspell it wrong. So their data systems are disconnected. They're not able to identify that these are the same customer and they have two different accounts. Happens all the time, by the way. And material master and service master, it's more prevalent than anything else. In fact, almost 2/3 of material master will be duplicate records. So driving out those duplicate records is the first job that we do inside data quality, is you try to improve the quality of data to the extent you can quickly identify duplicates, so you really know what you're talking about. And we have shared master data. We have a shared organization master and shared material master. And we also have tools that our members use to improve the quality of the data internally, their own data, but also as they're communicating with their trading partners. Now, the systems of record like your Oracle and your SAP and your Infor, that is where the data sits. but you need to have something on the front end that really looks after the data, brings in quality data. Next screen. These are some of the standards we work with that give you some idea of where we are. And I put at the very top of it, formatting date and time, only because it has nothing to do with us. Formatting date and time was done a long time ago. It's one of the older standards of ISO, but it's really an easy standard to look at and understand, which basically says you need to put the year first, followed by the month, followed by the day. Wow. Why do you need an international standard to do that? Well, for good reason. Here in the US, we don't do that. We typically put month, day, and year. You go to UK and they put day, month, and year. Now, of course, as long as you're in a month, that's a day that's beyond 12, you don't have a problem. So the latter half of the month, you don't have a problem. It's very obvious. If it's 01/15, you pretty much know it's the 15th of January. But if it's 01/06, you're not really sure it's the 6th of January or the 1st of June. That's a problem. In fact, it's a huge problem. Now, ISO simply says, here's a format you can use. We should all adhere to make sure we're unambiguous how we exchange information. The reason I put that right up there at the top, one is we all need it, of course, but two, it's a good way to check yourself. When you write a date, are you writing it in international format or some other format? And if so, why? Every single computer system out there can accept the date in international format. You're using, Microsoft Windows, right, or Apple, same thing. Look at the date format. You can change that date format to the ISO standard. If you're not using that date format, why are you complaining about your trading partners? So again, focus on that. It's really simple. It's really easy. Whenever I see a date that's not in international format, I say, stop. Why is your date not in international format? Don't you support standards? Why should we try to guess what you're talking about? Format it correctly. The second standard, we do open table dictionaries. Dictionaries are very important to us. We need to know what we're talking about. These are concept dictionaries, and they hold the key to what we call portable data. Portable data is simply data that has been encoded using a concept dictionary. And it's a really simple idea. It's not a new idea. Music is concept encoded. When you write music, you're writing symbols to represent something. And there's an international agreement on how to write music. Engineers use symbols as well. It just so happens in normal data and everyday life, as we move our data around, we're using words as labels, terrible labels for data. Are you talking about a cap? Well, what do you mean? Cap as in bottling cap, as in kneecap, as in tooth cap, or as explosive cap? Unfortunately, CAP is very misused. It can mean many different things. So the dictionary helps us do concept encoding. So that's another critical standard that we use. And of course, the reason they're highlighted on your screen is we have standards for formatting identifiers. Identifiers are the blood of everything we do. They circulate around in electronic commerce. They circulate around these identifiers, your driver's license, your passport number, your telephone number, your email address, a purchase order number. These are all identifiers, but they are representative of other data. So it's very important to know who issued the identifier, because that is the authoritative source, and that is the organization I'm going to have to ask, what does this number represent? Well, we're moving into a world where we can automate the resolution, the lookup of identifiers. If you give me an identifier and I know who issued it, I can actually go to them automatically and get them to tell me what this identifier represents. So the formatting of identifiers is a critical standard. It's very, very simple. It simply says you take any identifier and you put a prefix in front that tells you who issued the identifier. And like DNS, there's a prefix name server where you go and look up who owns that prefix and what are the addresses I need to go to to verify and validate the identifier. So that's ISO 800115. ISO 800116 is actually an application of ISO 800115, very specific application. It deals with the fundamental identifiers used to identify individuals and organizations. Same principle. There's a prefix. In this case, the prefixes are for government entities. As we move down to the bottom of the screen, as you can see, there's a couple of new standards we're working on. 14 for formatting portable data, that's in committee draft. But the two important standards that we're talking about more about today are the location identifier, but also the TUID, the transport unit identifiers. And those are really very, very important. The location identifier simply tells us where, using GPS. It just converts GPS into a very simple identifier using an open public standard. TUID takes advantage of that NLI, takes advantage of the prefixes and the other formatting to bring us a transport unit identifier to solve a very specific problem, which I believe Andrew and John are going to speak to. Next slide.
So DFM Data Corporation's platform is essentially the implementation of several of the ISO standards. And what we do is we take the TUID and we connect shipping exchanges using that format. We have a system called the Anonymizer, which cleans phantom data and protects proprietary information for each shipping exchange that participates in the system. We are also now a registrar for ECCMA. We are authorized to obtain and register smart prefixes, sub-prefixes, and natural location identifiers for our customers. And this is, as I said, in complete compliance and in implementing the ISO 8000 series of standards. Next slide.
The transport unit identifier, which is the implementation of a number of the ISO 8000 standards, including, of course, 119, which defines it, is the ability to drill all the way down to the specific load that is moving across the country from a global point of view, and includes a number of the NLI origin destination fields, the company and purchase order, as well as what is the current status of the transport unit being described in this ISO standard. And so it is a very simple and easy way to globally identify the transport order and get its status at any time.
Why is this relevant to today? Well, prior to June the 16th, 2022, there was an opportunity for the supply chain industry or supply chain stakeholders to come together and address many of these issues, not the least of which is visibility within the supply chain, knowing not only where goods are, but who's shipping to who and where in the process those goods are. What has happened on June 16th, President Biden signed the Ocean Shipping Reform Act of 2022, which brings with it, I'll get to in a minute, several specific changes to the law that will change the way shipping exchanges operate and will change the way the supply chain operates, both in the near term and in the long term. So the question that begs answering is why the industry keeps waiting to come together. Now we're in a situation where the US federal government is bringing top-down pressure, which hasn't been felt yet, but will be. And working together with ISO and ECCMA, DFM Data Corp has an industry governed solution that everyone can participate in and likely comply with what's coming from the Federal Maritime Commission, the Department of Transportation, and other players. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the Ocean Shipping Reform Act of 2022, Section 4 of that legislation defines a shipping exchange as a platform, digital, over-the-counter, or otherwise, that connects shippers with common carriers for the purpose of entering into contracts for the transport of cargo by vessel or other modes of transportation. And then it states that no person may operate a shipping exchange without first registering with the Federal Maritime Commission. They will be publishing rules under which that registration will occur and what information they will be collecting from shipping exchanges. An example of the top-down nature of the Ocean Shipping Reform Act is on the next slide, related to detention and demurrage. Detention and demurrage charges got out of control in the last year. While things were sitting on the docks, people were being charged, and they were being charged excessive amounts. Well, Section 7 of the Ocean Shipping Reform Act redefines the way an entity can invoice for detention and demurrage charges. And it became effective the minute the president signed the bill. So invoices previous to June 16th, 2022 are likely, for detention and demurrage charges, are likely not compliant with current law and are thus unenforceable. So if you can imagine the impact of that, I chose the Monopoly card here to say, do not pass go, do not collect $200, because anyone now billing for detention and demurrage charges has to change the way that they do it. And it took effect immediately, and it's likely not hit the market yet, this particular section, but it will. Next slide. So there's another small piece, and I use small sarcastically, in the Ocean Shipping Reform Act that grants them the ability to declare a supply chain emergency. They have 60 days from June the 16th to request public comment on how and when they should declare such an emergency and for how long. Once they declare a supply chain emergency, they gain jurisdiction over all players in the supply chain: motor carriers, common carriers, shippers, and rail carriers. It's authority that the Federal Maritime Commission has never had before. And as one commissioner said to me privately, it's all going to run through us. Next slide.
The Anonymizer messaging service is a service provided to all shipping exchanges and shipping exchanges in the registry, allowing for both the cleansing of phantom data as well as the communicating of transport unit ID status as the transport order progresses through its life cycle. And so the Anonymizer is a mechanism that is a semantic data layer that stands alongside of the data that you have in your shipping exchange and enables that data to move through the system and through the network into the members, the member data lake, and allows for statusing of that data at any time. So what is important to understand here is it's a multifaceted protocol that both cleanses and allows the ability for complete visibility as it traverses the life cycle of the transport order. So we just discussed the Anonymizer messaging service, and as you can see on the right in this slide, we see the detailed slide of the messaging service and the notion of the data lake, where all of that data resides while it is both active and from a historical point of view. All of that data is anonymized, and the ability to stand up or put the anonymizer into service is available as part of the membership in the membership voice platform. That would be the facility where you define both the shipping exchange as well as the members, and you can then stand up your data dictionary and have that mapped to the semantic data layer that the anonymizer service uses to communicate across the platform. Again, all activities inside the membership platform and all enhancements and the opportunity to extend the platform are available to all the members, and the governance-led model that is described on the left is how those opportunities work their way through the system and then become part of the long-term strategy in moving data around the system. Again, it's all industry-led, and as you can see at the bottom of the slide, each of the members has the opportunity not just to participate, but actually to become an equity member with full voting rights.
So we're in a situation where we have government regulation, market forces, buyers wanting to know where their shipments are. They want to have full visibility into the movement of their loads. We have new international standards, all driving the digital freight ecosystem towards information sharing. Our platform, as Andrew just said, provides this semantic data layer that runs alongside, I'll say that again, it runs alongside existing TMS systems, that enabling the anonymous exchange of information, including location and statuses, that complete visibility that the buyers of goods want. There's several ways to partner with DFM Data Corporation to implement ISO 8000 and the TUID, and you could begin that process today through the links provided here.
John, this is Peter. I just want to add to what you've just said. I had the occasion yesterday to meet with a number of investment advisors. We're asking us what's happening in the marketplaces and what they see changing. And I brought to their attention that probably the most significant change we see in 2022 and 2023 is dramatic improvement in the logistics in the transport industry. That the visibility and transparency and the ability to understand this data better is expected to have very dramatic impact on the costs that companies are facing. And again, we talk about these phantom loads on the exchanges. It's a challenge if you are a carrier and you're looking at one of these bid boards and looking at the loads that you're expected to bid against, and knowing that as much as a third of them are phantom, that you're wasting your time. It's discouraging. You're not going to put your best effort. You're not going to invest in systems that will allow you to be more efficient when the data that you're looking at, most of it's wrong. It doesn't exist. It's phantom. So clearing that problem out in a way that, of course, if you're an exchange, you want to make sure your marketplace is protected from your competitors, from the other marketplaces. But how do you work together? And that's part of what standards do. They allow us to work together, allow competitors to work together to make general improvements that help all of us. And if you look at the systems we use today, it's because there's a layer of standards that allows us to do things we couldn't do before. I mean, I look at GPS. which is an amazing technology, an amazing standard that we all use every day when we navigate. Well, it's because of the standardized of the format, and you have all these applications, all these tools. So I think what DFM Data Corp is doing with the Anonymizer, allowing to take advantage of this new standard to improve the efficiencies of these marketplaces will be a very, very significant change to corporations today in terms of cost of their logistics. So John, I just want to bring that to everybody's attention that investors are looking at this from a U.S. standpoint and international standpoint. Of course, is that that everybody blames the supply chain for everything. Well, this is one of the areas which is actually improving and changing some of that and some of the underlying technology underneath it. So I think it's critically important to most industries today.
Thank you, Peter.
So the manufacturer would get their TUID, they get their prefix, of course. They're now part of the system, and then they get their TUID. That's a transport order, and then they place it on the different marketplaces. So that transport order there has a 55 cents charge to it, but that is the only charge. In this case, I would assume, John, that the carrier does not pay anything because it's the shipper that's paying that 55 cents, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's like a postage stamp system, right? Put a stamp on the envelope. I don't
Exactly.
really know what a postage stamp costs these days, but that's a long time I mailed something, right? Not
Are there any other questions? If there are no other questions, then I will thank my fellow panelists, Andrew and Peter. I'll thank all of you for participating and invite you to contact us directly for more information. With that, happy Tuesday and have a good rest of the week.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, John.